Data protection and privacy teams are under more pressure than ever with new laws, AI oversight, data breaches, and the constant expectation to do more with fewer resources.
That's why TrustArc built a modern privacy and data protection management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. It unifies your tools, automates the work that slows you down, and surfaces what matters most right when you need it.
From guided quick actions to our intelligent assistant, Ask Arc, you get credible, contextual answers backed by expert research, not generic AI guesses.
Finally, privacy that works the way privacy pros work.
Learn how TrustArc helps teams move faster with confidence at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.
You're listening to Serious Privacy by TrustArc. Please welcome our hosts, Paul Breitbarth and Kay Royal.
Hey everyone, do you remember this?
Microsoft Corporation today officially unveiled its Windows 95 computer program. From Newfoundland to New York and New Zealand, millions of computer buffs swarmed into stores to buy the software package that's described as the dawn of a new era in personal computing. But is all the hype really warranted? CTV's Alan Fryer reports.
Gone are the days when you had to line up at a physical store to purchase a set of discs with the latest software. Nowadays, you can just go to an online app store and download whatever you need, or even easier, just subscribe via a website and start using the software in your computer browser. Software as a service, or SaaS, and that is exactly what we are talking about today. Kay will soon be speaking on a panel for the Association of Corporate Counsel 2021 virtual conference, that is, a US conference, together with other in-house counsels. The topic is the fine art of kicking SaaS. Given the scope of this large topic, the speakers will not be able to cover everything during their presentation, but the combination of expertise of this group with their extraordinary hands-on experience seemed a natural fit for the podcast as well. Certainly, we will not cover the webinar materials per se, but have a more open conversation about SaaS, how they've grown, and how they have been impacted by recent events. My name is Paul Breitbarth.
And I'm Kay Royal, and welcome to Serious Privacy. Because of who we have on the show and what the topic is, just know that the views of our speakers do not represent the views of their company or their customers or anyone they're associated with. As y'all know, with Paul and I can disclaim as much as I want to, and TrustArc still says, yeah, okay, whatever, it still reflects on us. I get it. So with that, let's go to our speakers. We're going to have you introduce yourselves if you don't mind. But I was hoping that Keith would be able to join us. He wasn't, but he will be on the webinar. It will be recorded in advance and then shown out. That's how ACC is doing their virtual conference this year. So it's going to be a different format. I'm looking forward to it. So we'll record it in advance and then it will be played and listeners will be able to ask questions as they're listening to the pre-recorded webinar, and we'll be able to answer questions live in chat as the webinar is going on. That's my understanding of how it's going to work. So I think it's going to be pretty fascinating. Yeah, right? So, unexpected question. In that case, we won't worry about it. I'm going to come to you first, Rosemary, because you are on my screen first. So, Rosemary, is it Kuperberg or Kuperberg?
Yep, that's right. Kuperberg, yep.
Kuperberg, wonderful. And the unexpected question is, if you could travel anywhere tomorrow, where would you go?
Well, the real answer is anywhere. Like, really, I need to get out of my house.
Anywhere.
Yes, but I had plans before COVID to go to Cambodia and Angkor Wat specifically, so that is still at the top of my bucket list. When I was a little baby person, I had decided I was going to go to all the continents by the time I was 30. That hasn't happened, although I would like to claim to be under 30. Yeah. So I have to get Asia still, and Cambodia's at the top of the list.
I like that. So Jennee Devore, then, where would you go tomorrow?
If it was literally tomorrow, it would probably maybe Hawaii or somewhere warm where I could have my toes in the sand. But if it was next week, I would love to take my au pair home because she's returning to Italy and I would love to fly home with her.
Oh, that would be amazing.
I'll just be in her suitcase. Take me with you.
Sounds really good.
No, okay. Rosemary, where are you in the U.S.? East Coast, West Coast?
East Coast.
That's what I was thinking. All of y'all are East Coast. Jennee, you're East Coast?
I'm West Coast. I'm in San Francisco area.
See, there you go, Paul. I'm still all confused when it comes to geography. Paul, where would you go?
I would probably come to Arizona to finally be able to record a podcast together with you in the same room. After a year and a half, it might be nice to meet each other in person.
It might actually be. It might. And to me, if I could go anywhere tomorrow, it would depend on the mode of travel. You know, my question always has my answers always have caveats to them. So depending on the mode of travel would tell you where I would go. One of the places here in the U.S. that is on my bucket list, and I try not to have bucket lists, but one of the places on there is Niagara Falls. And I would love to go to Niagara Falls. It's absolutely beautiful. I hear it's more beautiful from the Canadian side, but I'm afraid I'd be tempted to stay if they let me in. So let's get to the topic then, the fine art of kicking SaaS. And I love this because when ACC came up with this topic, there were really no parameters around it. We were allowed to define what we think should be included in, if you're considering SaaS services and as in-house counsel, what we need to know. So as you answer, what were your first thoughts? Tell us the perspective you're coming from. Like, I'm coming from the perspective of privacy. What's your perspective there? What's your role in interacting with SaaS? Are you customer? Are you vendor? What were your first thoughts? So Jennee, we'll come to you first on this one.
I've almost exclusively been a customer my whole career. And so I come from an operational standpoint, how to prep my team, how to work with my security team and infrastructure on how these tools come into our space. So a lot of it on the assessment, procurement, what's the risk profile on these products?
Got it. And what were your first thoughts on the program then? So when you saw the title come through that says, hey, would you be a speaker? What were your first thoughts?
Wow, this is a very open-ended question.
Yes, it is. But there's no right or wrong answer.
No. And are you looking at customer or vendor, right? Because we have pretty, different perspectives being counsel in those types of companies.
Oh, we do. We've talked about that. That was probably one of the topics that sparked me to go, ooh, this would be great for a podcast. Because this isn't something we can really talk about on the webinar then. Rosemary, your thoughts?
So I come at this from both the perspective of a vendor and a customer. I've worked for several SaaS vendors over the past little while. And as Susan said, I think every company, every in-house lawyer is a SaaS customer. I have yet to find a company that is not using some sort of SaaS. So it's really...
I love it. We keep saying SaaS. Y'all know what's going through my brain. Oh, yeah, we are sassy in-house
We
attorneys.
are sassy, for sure. Yeah, and it's something everybody should be aware of and pay attention to. So I think the panel is going to be great. Thanks for inviting me on the webinar as well. It's going to be fun. It's one of my favorite topics, but it's also something I have nightmares about sometimes. So
Ooh, tell me more about those nightmares.
We have a love-hate relationship.
Why the nightmares?
I'm right there with you, Rosemary. What keeps you up at night?
The list is so long. My favorite is when, your IT team or your business leaders or whatever are talking about how it's the lowest risk thing ever because it's free. And I'm using air quotes around the word free. And it's, I think, one of the first areas where the contract value is not at all related to the risk of what's going on. So it's really hard to set parameters around what's high and low risk because free used to mean it was a low risk service, right? And now it doesn't. So that is something that I fear is that.
And how long have we all been banging this drum? Trying to get people to understand that setting your contract review value at $10,000, $50,000, whatever it is, because you have to conserve resources, doesn't reduce your privacy risk. It reduces your time on your contract team for reviewing contracts. It doesn't reduce your privacy risk. And whether they're free or whether someone just did a click-through agreement and they just send it in for reimbursement on their personal expenses, it never hits the radar for anyone who is trained in privacy to pick up own risks. We've been banging this drum a long time.
Oh, for sure. And it's definitely privacy risk, but it's also IP risk. Like, what if somebody uploads your company's secret sauce to whatever free cloud such
See,
and such,
Paul?
right?
These are my people. These are my tribe. They're singing the song.
And the security risk on my end, it gives me nightmares about all the tools and say, oh, we don't need to use single sign-on for that. We can just log in and load all of our data on it. It's so magical.
Right?
So how do you make those assessments, Jennee? How do you assess the security for SaaS in a way that you are convinced that it is safe?
It's a tough question, right?
That's
have
why
to
I'm
put
here.
holes in it. I know.
Yeah, I don't ask the tough ones.
We need to have frank conversations early in the procurement process. I need a team that will tell me how it's going to work. And I'm going to throw the kitchen sink at it and have them help me understand what the vendor is going to do for us to provide security, and if there are any mitigating factors we can implement about how we use the tool to enable higher level of security.
So would you be happy just relying on ISO certifications or SOC reports or things like that? Or do you want to do your own due diligence going a lot deeper than those?
Yeah, that's a tough question, right? This is always the hot topic. Can you come in and do independent auditing?
Because there's only 5 million different versions of questionnaires, right?
Right. That's a tough one. I think, it's a balance. What is the risk and what are you using the tool for? If you're using it for something that really, I'm in life sciences, so if it's like a GXP software, supporting item where we need to do a little bit more diligence, yeah, we need a little bit of a partnership. A deep dive, I don't know, right? It depends on what the tool's doing. But then if it's
a risk-based approach.
Exactly. Yeah. And we have to, from the customer standpoint, know what we want to do. We can't go in and just blanket ask every vendor to do, the standard set of things that might not be applicable, right? That's not fair.
I love that. This is something that has come up in our thing, and this is the level of detail we can't get to in the webinar because we have several different topics to cover. But this is one of the things that I really like, because now with the new standard contractual clauses out of Europe and the guidance and everything, you have to take an individualized approach. And that means contract by contract. You can't just have, you can have standard things you throw in, but you need to understand that, okay, well, if you're only processing the public information on your own employees, such as what their name and their job title is, that's not much of a risk. Here in the U.S., that would not even be considered personal information defined under California because they exempt publicly available information. And so it's kind of like, where do you take the risk-based approach with this all the way through? But the thing is, you have to look at each one of them, because darn good and well your employees are going to expand the scope or the use or something. Or there's going to be a new employee that doesn't yet understand the nuances. And, here's this wonderful, I think Rosemary was saying, the IP, here's this wonderful free tool that I can upload my 2D drawing and it will turn it into a 3D drawing. And it's not like they're keeping anything. I download it back and delete it. We're good.
I laugh. Okay. I'm laughing because it gives you heartburn, right? When you're like,
Paul
knows
that this expression is me quirking an eyebrow.
Yeah, absolutely true. And I mean, I know how difficult these conversations are also in for you, and to keep track of everything. I'm very happy I'm not a contract lawyer, so I try to make sure that all of that goes beyond my desk and doesn't land on it. Rosemary, you said you were also involved with multiple software vendors before. What do you like better? Do you prefer to be on the seller side, on the vendor side, or on the purchasing side? And why?
So I, like a lot of lawyers, am a control freak. So I want to be involved in all of the things all of the time. So I'm not
Paul's not
sure.
accustomed to that at all.
I'm not sure I can pick, but I think there's benefits and challenges of being on both sides, and I think something that is so important, regardless of which side of the table you're on, is you have to understand the service and what it does and what kind of data it is and what might be going on as far as analytics that the vendor is doing sort of on the back end for their own purposes. Like, there's all sorts of facets to it, but you cannot give appropriate legal advice to whoever you're working with unless you understand what it is. Like, SaaS is not one size fits all. There's no such thing as a template contract that's going to work for everything. You really have to get into the weeds with it, like Kay was saying about the SCCs.
Yeah. And you said something there that just resonated with me, and now the thoughts just flew out of my head like, no one's business. And yes, this will happen during the webinar, but I'll control myself better. But where was I going, Paul? Go ask your question.
I was just going to ask you, what is the main question that you were longing to ask that you will not be able to ask during the webinar?
Well, the good thing is I'm not giving them questions during webinars, but I think the question that I have is, okay, this is one thing that came up with Keith and I when we were first on it. Y'all probably remember we were talking about way back when gosh, how many years ago, 15 years ago, when companies didn't want to use SaaS services. When using a cloud provider was no, you can't do that. That's risky. You can't outsource your data. And at the time, I was one of the few privacy people that was willing to stand up and say, no, you should. Cloud service providers are fantastic. They have expertise we don't. Why wouldn't we give it to them? And I think now it's changed people. But do y'all remember those days when using a cloud provider was like, no, that's too risky. You can't do that. What were your experiences then? What were you thinking?
It used to be all about the cloud is what's scary, right? Not what kind of cloud it is, which is funny. I have some former colleagues they happened to be in Europe, and they were talking one day years ago about how funny it is that they called it the cloud, right? Because clouds bring rainstorms and thunder and whatever. And so they were wondering why we called it the cloud at all, because it automatically gives you a negative connotation.
Don't you remember all the stories of what's the cloud hiding? It's blocking out the sun. What's this cloud hiding from us? Right, Jennee?
Mm-hmm. We can't access it. It's somebody else controls the cloud.
We don't know where it is.
We don't know where it is. We need the cloud to be localized here.
Yes.
Well, I think that's still an ongoing discussion right now with all the data transfer discussions.
Right.
It is. And when they talk about company, and this is still something a lot of companies fail to do, they might be savvy enough to ask, where is the backup location? So you've got your primary location, East Coast US, your backup location is West Coast US. Okay, so you have different geographic regions. Not likely something's going to take out the entire United States from coast to coast at one time, and that is not a challenge to anyone to try to do so. Just not likely to happen,
just
right?
Recalling the oil pipe that we had a few months ago that had a countrywide effect.
It was horrible. And that's one thing China's actually discussing in their new bills is their utility operators inside China and the protections they need to have in place. But regardless, one of the things that people forget to ask about, they still use that old terminology, cloud bursting, because there's not a newer term that encompasses, okay, well, if all of my US data centers are overloaded, where do I send it for that processing when one data center is overloaded? Which data center does it go to? And I still don't see a lot of companies asking about the location of that. Where do you do failover? Is it called failover processing?
That sounds right. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
Failover processing.
Yes, we're all just laughing, going, is there a new term for that? I haven't heard of a new term for it other than cloud bursting, but it's funny that that terminology still continues with us. There are attorneys that have been around a lot longer than Paul and I. So they're not even digital immigrants, I guess, the way Paul and I would be considered. So there are older attorneys that would probably be considered digital dinosaurs that are just trying to learn to walk in this world and stay alive, doing business, that really still are the ones that I see the questions coming from about whether or not something is on-prem or not. Those are the only ones I get the on-prem questions from. I hadn't realized that. And yes, all due respect to very experienced attorneys that I'm calling digital dinosaurs. Y'all are fantastic. I'm really not meaning it as an insult. This is just me. Paul's just rolling his eyes.
No, I'm just trying to wonder why we made this sudden move to software as a service. Is it really because it's cheaper, because it's easier, because it's better? Why would we not have, for certain things that we do, on-premise implementations? Any of you?
I think a lot of it is leaving the back-end administration to the experts, right? The SaaS vendors know what they're doing. They know how to keep the system running. They know how to do all of that. Well, yeah, exactly. But if it's, if your organization has a smaller IT department, or maybe even doesn't have one, right? You have to call outside help every time you need to do an upgrade or a, new server or whatever. It's a lot easier for customers not to have to do it themselves if they have validated that the vendor they have selected knows what they're doing.
And is not a 16-year-old in his parents' garage that had this brilliant idea and built a solution, which happens more often than people would think.
Well, there are some 16-year-olds in their garage who really do know what they're doing, right?
And
as long as the server isn't in the garage, that's probably a bad idea, but otherwise it might be okay.
That is true. Jennee, thoughts on where are we seeing? We have platform as a structure, we have software as a structure, we have infrastructure as a structure. There's another structure I just heard about that I was like, what? But where do you see us going with non-local service providers? I don't even know what to call them anymore if we can't call them cloud providers.
Right. System software, it's like this enigma. It's the thing that is not here, right? It's over there.
Yeah, if you take the first letter off the AAS, then I can't pronounce it on the show, or we have to mark it as explicit material.
Right? It's as a something, right? We're doing something as something else. I think it's creative. Every iteration, it's the evolution of thinking about how we operate differently using the technology that we have, and it's iterative. I think that's one of the fun things about being in this space is that we have to learn it.
Right.
To be able to support it, we have to understand what this thing is doing and what the risks are. Coming back to that risk assessment, but it's always like, business, tell me what you're buying. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
What do you want?
And do we have another provider that provides the same thing that we're already using that we could simply expand their scope to cover this as well? Because this brings us to another really good topic. And Paul and I have a sponsor. We don't do productized podcasts, but we are sponsored by TrustArc. This is a TrustArc sponsored podcast. And TrustArc is a cloud provider. And one of the things that we run is Privacy Central and Risk Profile as part of our solution, which has in there the ability to put in your data flows and your process management, which covers your vendors and everything like that. And so that brings me to a point you were reminding me about, Jennee. If they want to use a new vendor, where do they go to find out if they're already using a vendor along those lines? Most companies don't have that, in my experience.
You hope you have an inventory and somebody knows what kind of tools, what they do, what we bought. That's
yeah. That person just left the company last year.
Program.
Yeah, exactly. That person left last year. We don't have any idea. Or okay, let's go to worst case scenario. the person that left the company last year was the person that managed that outsourced service. And now nobody's managing that outsourced service. What kind of nightmares does that give you?
Mm-hmm. Right. And at what point in time does that trickle to legal for a review?
Yeah.
Or
when there's a breach?
Right.
But also on the vendor side, I recall from a few years ago, I had some customers where all the points of contact had left. And then trying to find out who is responsible for the contract renewal, or even who to give access to the platform. That can be a very big challenge. Hey, listen, you are paying this for the coming 2 years. Maybe somebody wants to use it as well. I mean, since you are paying for it, then who can I give the license to? That can be very difficult.
Yeah. So it's not only that you need processes concerning how to engage cloud providers, outsourced providers. You need processes internally to know who's the owner of systems and how to transition when people leave the company. And I'm sure there's a policy in place that says that there are owners of data systems, especially if you're ISO certified. You're going to have a control that there is an owner of every data system and a transition process if that person should leave the company. In practice, have y'all seen this? Because I haven't.
I have, but it's imperfect, right? Because there's never
really trickles of it.
Right, trickles of it, right? Well, what if somebody leaves and they're the owner of that system? Who does it go to? Sure, the policy says so, but it doesn't mean that person actually has the bandwidth to do it.
Right.
And is it verified that the handover took actually place?
Yeah.
Is it part of the old exit conversation that you need to show and record? Yes, this was handed over to person X and this was handed over to person Y. How would you do that? What would the ideal, between air quotes, process look like?
Right. It's a little bit easier, I think, if your company has a quality team that has a training mechanism. But if it doesn't, if it's a little bit looser than that, right? Where's your compliance? A little bit looser. Where's your compliance around it? I don't know. Some air waving. Right?
Rosemary, what are your thoughts?
Exactly.
Here?
I think this has gotten a little easier. Like, I don't think the GDPR made a lot of things easier, but the fact that everybody needs a data inventory, which kind of means a system inventory, which kind of means a system owner. Like, a lot of companies now will at least have a system inventory, which is ahead of where we used to be. Mm-hmm. And I know at some companies, it's like the system owner is assigned to a role and not a person, so that it's easier to transition. Because when I'm in my vendor chair and random person at my customer says, oh yeah, and I'm the new John Smith who is no longer with the company. Like, as a vendor, you're kind of like, well, are you though? Like, I only knew John Smith and I don't know who you are. And how do I know, like, if I'm turning over the keys to whatever system it is to this new person I've never talked to, how do I know that you're actually entitled to it, right? So it's hard on both sides. So I think it's important to have at least a department in charge of each system, so that if one person leaves, it's not, it's not a nightmare to figure out how to replace that person.
Okay, so we are coming close to the end of time. So I'll come to each of y'all with this same question, or y'all just spit it out if the idea comes to you. So Rosemary, you just gave me this inspiration here about if someone leaves the company, who does it go to in the department? Well, in the COVID-19 recovery pandemic, return to work, or we're never having a building again, we're permanently working from home environment. I saw a statistic the other day that 65% of people are looking for new jobs.
Wow.
Because of the opportunity they have with changing working environments. What kind of impact do you think that's going to have on SaaS providers, both from the provider perspective and the customer perspective?
Huge. And I think it's great that there's so much opportunity out there and so many people feeling optimistic about, new things that are available. Like, awesome. I'm all for it. But I think the turnover is so much faster than it used to be. Like, it used to be, 2 or 3 people leaving per month or something. And now it's
in other words, you didn't have
30.
to have a Zoom meeting with a group of people for exit interviews because it was only ever one.
It's a lot of moving around, and it's very hard to keep track of things. I think it's harder to onboard people, like when you brought on new staff, because when someone leaves the company, most organizations are pretty good at cutting access, right? You just cut that person and that's it. But figuring out all the little things that person had access to so that their replacement can now get access to all of that, that's much harder. And I'm not sure how to fix that.
Jennee, your thoughts?
I'm going to step it up. I mean, there's always the anxiety about who's going to be responsible and how do I do the operational aspect with the, massive attrition. But I wonder if it will cause an evolution in companies thinking about how to move systems faster, dealing with their data so that they can transition. And what I'm meaning is right now to move from one system to another is almost impossible, right? Once you've invested in a system, no company wants to change. Mm-hmm. But I think what will happen is that with attrition and moving, people will have really creative thoughts about how to use a tool because they've used it at a different company or they hated that tool at the other company. So they'll want to change and fine tune the experience. So I actually think this adjustment of workers will kind of, I hope, sift out the tools that don't work as well as others. It's really kind of like the long term. I want to see companies think more creatively about how their data is portable from one system into another and start using that as a mechanism to kind of get stronger, better tools over time.
So yeah, I guess that would also increase demands that companies impose on vendors for data portability. I mean, data portability exists under multiple privacy laws now, but that's merely a hypothesis because in practice, it doesn't really work. At least not yet.
And it doesn't happen. Yeah, right. Most companies don't do it. And really, the mechanisms are really not great. Right. I think that's what you're saying is like people don't use it and it doesn't exist, but I'd like to see it exist in a better way.
So that's something to aspire to. Okay, what are your expectations with the changing labor market? How would that impact SaaS in your views?
I think coming from a SaaS provider, I think perhaps one of the biggest things we have to consider are the engineers developing it. I mean, if you've got a roadmap and you've got development in process and you lose people that are working on that development or that roadmap, maybe even the person working on the strategy driving what it's going to look like or what comes next, then you're losing something key in the company. Not something that can't be replaced, but whoever comes in, no matter how good they are, they're never going to have they're never going to be day one taking the place. There's always going to be a ramp up period, a learning period, usually switching industries, learning privacy versus security versus marketing versus whatever. And of course, they're going to bring their own thoughts of how they want to do things and the providers that they like to use to support it. So no matter what, depending on the position, it can have a key impact on what it does. And you sometimes still see in some of these larger companies the provision that if you're going to change out a key person, then you have to give them advance notice. And it's like, in this job market, how can you possibly do that? You don't even know necessarily who might be considered key until you see they're gone and what impact it had on whatever it was you were doing. Which reminds me of the question that I had the brain spurt on earlier was, what about this provision of giving customers advance notice and the ability to decline using a sub-processor? I mean, how has that complicated processes, especially if you committed to giving, 30 days advance notice and, they want to onboard this tomorrow because they realize they had a key missing piece.
I'm not going to touch that one.
Yeah, we're entering. I mean, we've been like tiptoeing through the door of new privacy and data protection regulations and a way of life. People would say GDPR was not tiptoeing, it was a monster throwing. But it's more like, they opened up the doors wide. It's a double entry and they opened up the doors, but now you've got all these other privacy laws coming through them little by little. It's a little trickle. And at what point does that little hole in the dam burst it? And I don't know how many other metaphors I could possibly have put into that example right there, but but that's the way I think about it. Is I don't think we've seen the biggest parts yet. I think there's still a lot more to come.
Well, and that discussion will be continued at the ACC webinar later this year. At the ACC 2021 virtual conference. This conversation will be continued. And I guess that SaaS is here to stay, that we will not go back queuing in line like we did back in the days for Windows 95. Thank you for listening to another episode of Serious Privacy. If you like our series, please do tell your friends and colleagues about us and rate and review our episodes in your favorite podcast app or on your favorite podcast platform. Should you have any questions or suggestions, please reach out to us via seriousprivacy@trustarc.com or via Twitter at @podcastprivacy. You'll also find us on LinkedIn. Just look for Serious Privacy. You'll find Kay on Twitter as Heart of Privacy and myself as Hero Paul B. Until next week, goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
That was Serious Privacy.
If you're a data protection or privacy professional, you already know the pressure. Non-stop regulatory change, AI oversight, internal demands, and the expectation to somehow stay ahead of it all. And the old patchwork of tools just isn't cutting it anymore.
No. That's why TrustArc created a modern privacy management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. The TrustArc platform brings your workflows, evidence, research, tasks, and applications all together in one unified and intelligent workspace so you don't waste time digging, clicking, or context switching.
With Ask Arc, your privacy assistant, you can ask plain language questions about laws, jurisdictions, or even your own program data, and get credible, cited answers based on NIMBY research and more than 1,000 global laws. It's explainable, transparent, and purpose-built for data protection and privacy.
So if you need to add a vendor, create a cookie banner, or start an assessment, quick actions take formally complex tasks, turn them into bite-sized guided workflows to save you time.
It's a platform that thinks like you, works like you, and helps you move faster with confidence, whether you're a seasoned DPO or you're just getting started.
See how modern privacy gets done. Explore Arc at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.